Welcome back to another episode of Taking Inventory. This week, we've got a very special guest, longtime friend, Shachar Scott. Shachar, super excited to have you on the podcast today to get through your entire journey. We know one small part of it, which we're fortunate to know, where we met you, but welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you. This is a reunion. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. We know you have a ton going on and that you are working on like some of the coolest products that like out there. So thank you. And I know you've been running around the world, so we appreciate you making the time.
Anything for you. And I will get you some products you guys have the next time.
Well,
Deal.
well, let's on that note, let's kick it off. What products you are working on and how you got there? Because you have a very cool story and a pretty impressive career.
Thank you. I've been at the kind of intersection of marketing and technology for 23 years. Started on the agency side and then moved over to Apple. Early days, helped them launch their first ad platform and keep people like Mark Zuckerberg making apps and monetizing them with advertising. Even though that didn't work, stayed at Apple and launched Apple Music and first gen of Apple News, and really cut my teeth in product marketing before coming to Snap and getting the opportunity to work with you guys, which was amazing. And, like that roller coaster was unbelievable because we did things that have never been done before and really changed, I think, the way people communicate still today. And then went to Bumble and helped them go public and changed the rules of dating during the pandemic when you couldn't meet people. And so how do you like bring intimacy when you're physically distant from people? So that was really amazing. And then now at Meta, I lead global marketing for Reality Labs, which is all the hardware, software, and services within Meta. So we have the Meta Quest headset, which is our VR and MR headset, which is amazing, which we'll talk about. And then we also have a great partnership with Luxottica, and we launched Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses, the first AR smart glasses. And we are also building the Horizon platform, which is kind of the future of social connection and what we call the metaverse.
Yeah, that's a lot of really cool stuff. I will say, I mentioned this before we started recording, but like I've seen the Meta Ray-Bans like in the wild. They're very cool. As someone who had one of the first pairs of Snap spectacles, they unfortunately like put them to shame. But it is like you can just see like how mass market it's gonna be, and so it's really cool what you guys are building. I guess like given just like you've been in all these different stages of companies. I mean, in some of like the most valuable companies in the world. Like, what's the experience been like at Meta where like hardware, like historically has not been the focus, but like you can tell now that it's very much becoming one. But like, what's it been like to help transition kind of from like a software focus to like a hardware focus?
Yeah, it's interesting because like Oculus, which was a company that Meta acquired, then Facebook, has been around for 10 years. So in the 20 years that Meta's been around, like half of it, they've actually been innovating. And we used to have Portal, which was another product, piece of hardware. The thing that I think Meta does really well is they understand people and they understand how they communicate. And so if you take that same application of like human connection and social connection, and then you apply that to the way that people use hardware, I think that's actually one of the things that distinguishes our hardware from even those in our peer set. So if you take Quest, it's not just an isolated experience of like, I'm going to go into a hole and like play something. It's like, oh, what's Danny doing? I want to know what games James is playing and like do them together. And then the same thing for Ray-Ban Meta. It's like, how can I be more present and enjoy what I'm doing without having to bring my phone out and put a screen in between me and my kids or me and my dog or just me skiing down a mountain, like hands-free, capturing that content. So it actually is like pretty authentic to what Meta's mission has always been around social connection and bringing people together. It's just applied through the use of other means, but it to me, there's like that natural connection. It's just a matter of like doing it through different form factors. 2D became 3D.
And, it's one thing for like software developers or even hardware developers to say, I want people to be passionate about this and to be engaged and to engage with one another. It's another to communicate that message and actually get people to buy in. I mean, you've made a career of working at companies where consumers are bought into the brands, bought into the experiences, bought into the communities. I mean, Apple, best at it in the world. Snap certainly, Bumble certainly, and now Meta. Like, what have you taken from all those experiences on like how to effectively get people to engage with the brand and start to see themselves in the brand as not just a product, but as part of the development of it?
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, I think for Ray-Ban Meta is like the best example, I think, because you have a product that we had what in our mind were like very specific use cases. Unboxing, parenting both pets and parenting kids, cooking. And then you put the product in the hands of creators, of like real consumers. And then, holy shit, you see how they actually use it. And then you have things that we didn't even think of. And that's like, and then that actually became our marketing. So for Ray-Ban Meta, we have a great integration with Spotify. And so you can listen to music, podcasts like this one, hands-free while you're driving without having like the world shut out because you've got ear pods where you've got silencing on. So the spatial audio is a really incredible part of that product. And so what we didn't expect is like teens on TikTok to take that product and do a music video with it. And all of a sudden, we had, hundreds of millions of musicians and creators creating. Tyla launched her new song Water using Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses, did it before the Grammys. Like you've got all these use cases. Maluma playing at Madison Square Garden is his like most coveted show that he's ever wanted to do. And like being able to show his fans the perspective of being on that size of a stage for the first time ever. And like, we didn't expect all these things to happen. And so I think part of what you're tapping into is like, the product is amazing, but it's only as amazing as what your consumers say it is. And if you put it in their hands and they actually find new application and ways to use it that are super authentic to what they're already doing, it's magic. And then that actually became like how we used like our launch platform to tell the story of what this product could do, which was, it wasn't far from where we started, but the way that consumers kind of took the brand and made it their own and the product their own was incredible.
Yeah, it is. I know, like we like on this podcast we talk about Snap way too much, but like it is just like it does show you what well, get beat up by friends there for this, but it's like the importance of execution, like of just building an awesome product is like
Yes.
really, really
So
important.
important. Yeah.
And like it's such a great showcase of it. And yeah, I mean, is that like, I'm sure you can't say a lot of this stuff, but like, just like, given that like hardware is not historically in the DNA like of Meta, like, is it crazy like how good that team is at building this stuff? Like, is it like kind of surreal just being around it?
It it is. And I think that's one of the things that I love most about being here. It is definitely the people and the caliber of people. It's the first time in my career where like the strategy, the ambition, the team, the resources, the ambition are like all there. So it's not, it's not unfathomable that we can actually achieve like what we're setting out to do because we have all those ingredients. But you're right, like flawless execution is like critical. You can have a strategy and you can have, great plans, but if you don't nail that execution, it doesn't matter. And I think the other piece of it that is unique and we're the last, big tech company where it's still like founder led, where you've got like a really CEO and founder, and I think that is another piece of it. And we experience that at Snap for sure. It's like you've got someone who believes in something so much and they're going to really help push it forward. And like that's you you need that. And it's great when there are other incredible CEOs that can help companies go to the next level. But there is something to be said about founder-led companies. And that is, I think, one of the ingredients that makes Meta so amazing. And I think that what made Snap great and Real Friends and all the things that we worked on together, like, yes, it was about the team and about the product that delivered against that. But I think you also need to have a leader that pushes.
I think in our generation, you're hard pressed to find someone that's been more successful as a founder led company with so much, I think, um, negativity or scrutiny around him, especially at such a young age. But I'm curious, like, did
Mhm.
your team know when he went on Instagram and started comparing devices? We won't name the other device, but as he started comparing them, like, did you
Of
guys know
course.
that, or he just
Oh,
dropped
of
this?
course.
Okay,
No, no, no. And we can definitely name it and talk about it. I mean, I think it's great and it like democratizes what we're doing. But I mean, I think what's been great now is like I actually just pulled up. There's now creators that usually do product reviews and they're reviewing his review. And so that to me is like the ultimate sign of like, not only did it cut across culture, and now when you Google Apple Vision Pro, the first thing that comes up is Mark Zuckerberg's review of Apple Vision Pro. And we actually just had a meeting with Best Buy, and we're hearing that like people are coming into Best Buy asking for the Apple Quest, and the blue shirts are like, oh, you mean the Meta Quest? It's right there. Um, and so it's a good thing because it actually legitimizes the space that Meta has been innovating in for over a decade already. Um, and we're a seventh of the price. So
James and I, after that happened, I mean, we were scouring Twitter, just because you see so many of these videos, this discourse of like, oh, that was the wrong move. Oh, that was incredible leadership, and just
Mhm.
the discussion around it. And like you watch this,
Yeah,
and it was great, but it was also like this is the equivalent of an unboxing and a review on YouTube. It
yeah,
just so happens it's Mark Zuckerberg, but like the
yeah.
amount of conversation that it started was like it was amazing.
Like we have all done the demos, and I think Mark represents what all of us were thinking, which is like we genuinely believe that Quest 3 is the best headset. It is like distinctly better. And not only that, but it's like way more accessible. And so for literally a seventh of the price, like you could buy 7 Quest 3s or you could buy 1 Apple Vision Pro. And like the experience is for like watching TV and entertainment, I think Apple Vision Pro like nailed it, right? But that's not the use case that we're seeing. Like people are doing it to play games. They're doing fitness. They're listening to music. They're like they're doing household chores on it, like and having YouTube up and Netflix up. Like there's so many other use cases that they haven't nailed yet. And yeah, I mean, I think Quest is still the better headset for the majority of people that like want to use mixed reality and VR to do things like playing games and hanging out with friends socially without it being like a very passive experience you got to sit back on because you have a battery attached to you with a cord.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
not a good experience.
it is extremely impressive what Meta has done, given that again, it's like not historically been building this stuff. I guess, one use case that I've read a lot about for the Quest that like, I haven't personally played around with, but it's like love to kind of get your point of view is just like the workplace.
Yeah.
Like, is that real? Like, is that gonna happen?
Yes. So you mean workrooms, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, all of us
Yeah.
like doing this right
Yep.
now, like
Yeah.
present doing this,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, the pandemic like changed forever the way that we work and and like value like productivity, right? In such a profound way. And I think like obviously I'm back in an office, you guys are back in office, but I mean, this is still a really effective way to communicate. And so you might have caught the interview that Zuck did with Les Friedman, but like that was done in codec avatars, like full 3D renders of them. And they were in 2 different states. And then they felt like they were sitting across from the table from each other in the same room. And workrooms is that. Like that is the future that we're building where you could feel like you're in the same place and you could collaborate effectively with people that you're sitting in an office with, and also there are 3D avatars of people who are not there, who are dialed in from London or Tokyo or wherever is on that time zone, and feel like you're doing it just like you were in an office. And so we still have a little bit of ways to go with codec avatars, but I think even in the product state that it is in today, like Workrooms is incredibly impressive. We do a lot of our meetings in headset, and like the goal is to get like as many employees in the device as possible so that we can help figure out what are like the best and optimal ways to use it. But like remarkable what you can do, and um, we also have the MetaQuest Pro, which is obviously a much more expensive device. We launched last year, 2 years ago, sorry. And that is like used a lot by professionals. So designers who are using it to make cars or the next sneaker. You've got people using it like a Walmart for training all their new employees so that they don't have to bring people in for customer service trainings, but they can do it remotely. We have Lufthansa training their pilots how to like navigate storms on it, firefighters how to navigate fires that they've never had to deal with. So there's a lot of like enterprise application that we have seen, and the hope is obviously to expand that. Um, like, will we be the Microsoft? I don't know. I think probably be the Windows is kind of the goal, right? Like, can the software like Workrooms be the platform that everybody uses, depending on whatever headset they have?
It is. I'm hearing you talk about all that. Like there are so many use cases that like you don't think about because I'm not a pilot. Like why would I think about pilot training or firefighter training?
You're not a pilot?
Not yet.
What?
Not yet.
Danny, you could be a pilot.
Goals for this year.
Goals. This is a total tangent, but there was a trend online, probably on Instagram. My wife saw it, asking men if they think they could land a plane in the event of an emergency. It was like 60% of men
Absolutely.
said yes. And the confidence,
I could totally do
I
it.
said the same. And she's like, the confidence of a man these days is like unheard of.
Play the fighter pilot game in Quest 3 first and see how you do.
There we go. Okay, I'm going to start there.
Then you can answer the question again.
I'm going to start there instead of $1 billion plane.
Yes.
But no, talking about all these different use cases that people don't necessarily understand or think about, like from a broader context, we've been talking about AR and VR and mixed reality for a decade now. Companies have come and gone, raised a lot of money. I mean, at Snap, there was, we did a lot of AR and VR, but it never has gotten, I think, the traction where it has gotten today. And probably very few pieces of software, pieces of technology have been scrutinized quite as much. Maybe Web3 slightly more, but like AR, VR, like there just seems to be a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding about it. And so like, how do you as a marketer, one, help dispel some of the myths, but then two, like push the understanding forward, right? Like teach people what they can do with it, what they should do with it, how they can think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like we talk a lot about even AI, and like people think it's like this new thing because of ChatGPT, and you're like, no, it's actually been around for a really long time. And like the entire algorithm that like apps like Facebook are built on, I've used it for literally over 10 years. And so like I actually think that people don't realize how much they use AR. I mean, every single editing app, like obviously Snap like changed the camera, but you've got CapCut, you've got Adobe, like all these things are editing tools that like you literally put another surface on your body, on your face, on your picture that is augmenting the reality of that picture. Like that is AR. I think a lot of people don't realize how much VR can enhance the experience of watching a game, being courtside at the NBA, like all these things. And so I think a lot of these things have been around for a lot longer. People use them way more than they think they do, actually. And then the like opportunity for marketers is like, how do you make it resonate, right? And so we see like on our products, it's a lot of like teens and young adults that use our products like after school and on weekends. We know that from like watching usage trends, and they're doing it to like have fun, play games, do fitness, all those things. Um, And so we are like constantly seeing how the devices and how the products are being used to help inform the messaging and the marketing that we continue to put out to get more people to do it. Um, and it is like a ton of education. Like a lot of it is just, showing someone that they can learn how to play piano without actually having a piano. So that was like our entire holiday spot for Q4 23 to launch Quest 3 and show people what mixed reality is, because it sounds so, oh my God, that's out there in the next 10 years. Like, no, right now, like my son can literally, because we can't bring the piano everywhere, but he plays piano. He can play piano wherever we go on vacation, wherever we travel to, using Quest 3. So it's like finding all the everyday, I think, use cases or things that people can relate to. Like, oh, I've always wanted to learn piano, but am I going to spend $4,000 on a piano? Probably not. Um, to be able to like break through to them and make them feel like shit, like I can't live without this thing anymore. But I think you're right. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions about what these things are, because they have a lot of baggage. And the reality is people don't understand that they're probably using them like hundreds of times a day. And it's not just this thing that's like out there in the future, but it's how our kids will certainly live their life and grow up in a way that my kids don't feel like their Roblox self or their Minecraft self or the person that creates a Pinterest board and manifest or snaps their friend or like watches some piece of inspirational content on Instagram is a different version of themselves. It's all them. And so I think the younger generation already thinks in that way. And they'll be our bosses one day.
Yeah. That's it. I think I've mentioned before this. I have a 24-year-old that lives with us, and you can tell they definitely have a different sense of like who they are. Like the digital version of them and the physical one are like totally aligned in a different way.
Yeah.
And I do think, to your point, like you're making all these products social, and like it's so much better. Like these kids could fall into these sinkholes, and that's not super great. So it's very cool. You mentioned two things there that kind of stuck out. One was just the piano use case. I saw that
Yeah.
like on some random YouTube video, and so it was some guy like doing the dishes and playing the
Yeah.
piano or something.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the first time I understood what you guys were doing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, this thing's like, this is good. This is like, again, it's sort of like what everyone thought specs would be one day. Like
Yeah.
this is going to be mixed reality, and this is like makes a ton of sense. And then you mentioned just like AI, and I know like Meta AI is integrated into the sunglasses, and obviously, it's sort of being pushed across everything. But like, what's a good way for us to think about Meta AI? Like, is it a standalone? Is it part of everything? Like, and maybe even on top of that, just given the disaster of the Gemini rollout on Google's side, that
No
just is
comment.
happening like in real time. Yeah, like how do you think about it?
Yeah. I mean, it has been invisible, I think, to a lot of people, because it is meant to enhance what you're already doing, right? We did launch at Connect last year, Meta AI, and a couple of different use cases emerge out of that. So what you don't know is that we were able to integrate it into Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses like 3 weeks prior to the launch. It was like on the roadmap for like sometime in the distant future, and Mark's like, bring it up. And we did, and it launched with it. We're about to launch multimodal, which allows you to actually take a picture and it will like enhance and read a menu in Italian and translate it to you in English. Or you'll be riding your bike and get turn by turn directions, or trying to fix a flat tire, and Meta AI will help you through that by what you're seeing and what you're able to communicate. So there's a lot of like utility that is built into it. And there's a lot of like also like fun use cases, right? So think about customer service and WhatsApp business messaging. Think about, having a conversation with Paris Hilton. All these things are like different ways that you can experience AI on Meta's platforms today. But I think the one that sticks out to me, obviously, with Ray-Ban Meta is the ability to like ask any question, and not like what's the weather, because that there's no AI built into that. That's just a Google search, right? But it's like, how can this thing help me be smarter and enjoy what I'm doing? So how fast is that car going? To understand proximity, like all these things that like you didn't have before. So I think you can think of like AI built into everything that you do on our platforms already as a utility, and then some like really fun application that you've never even thought of before. But I think like it's going to be pervasive. It's not a standalone thing that like you tap into. It's like, how do you integrate it into your life in lots of different ways?
Yeah, it's funny. We had a call with a friend at someone I can't say who it is, but at one of a big ad platform, and uh, we were like kind of arguing about like what's going to happen like with the ad managers and AI.
Mhm.
And Mark's been like pretty transparent about it. I think on the Lex Friedman one, he was like, "Dog Walker is going to say, get me more customers,
Yep.
whatever." And it's like, I was telling this person, I was like, just like you can't like doubt Mark Zuckerberg when he says these things. Like it's gonna happen.
Happening. Yeah. It's already happened.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just like
Yeah.
so
We're
it's
not
crazy.
living in the future. We're like building it, right? Like we're just building it right now.
Yeah.
Um, one thing, changing gears a little bit, as long as we've known you and just even hearing you kind of talk about a lot of this, you've always been a huge proponent of like mentorship, particularly for younger women in tech. As we know, like tech is not greatly known for having a huge level of diversity. And so, like, at what point did that become so important to you? And like, would love to just kind of hear kind of your passion for it as you've developed it, and um, kind of what, yeah, just kind of hear your thoughts about it.
I love it. Um, I mean, look, I grew up in like a very progressive household. Like my mom was a carpenter when I grew up. Like she built our house. My dad was, always working, but like always was the one to make our lunches and like bring us to school and from school. So like the traditional gender roles like that many people kind of subscribe to, like I never was exposed to that. And so I just grew up kind of thinking that, there was equality in the world. And then you get out there and then you realize, holy shit, that's not the case. And then, yeah, I mean, I think just as someone that is capable of making a difference and like having, um, you know, the conviction behind like empowering women, like I think empowered women empower women. Like I think that there's, and men, frankly, I think that there's like an opportunity for us to just, as we've gone through lots of experiences, you guys included, like you have seen some shit. And if you can help somebody else either see around a corner or have a better opportunity in front of them because they're being exposed to it because of your mentorship, like why wouldn't you do that? Right. And so I think for me, it has been a really big part of how I've managed teams. It's been a big part of how I lead and also like bring people with me where I go and keep in touch with the ones that I've connected with in all parts of my career. But it is, I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. And you're right that there are not a lot of women in tech. And so there are, I think, huge leaps and bounds happening in like schools. And my kids are in sixth grade and they're both equally exposed to like STEM and development and like things that frankly typically we wouldn't be exposed to, right? And so I do hope that there are more girls in STEM that go into paths of like engineering. I think that we need more women represented in those rooms because the product that we're designing are also for women. And so there's a perspective that I bring that you might not, and vice versa. And so, I mean, for me, it is like, I believe that there's no table too like small or big. Like there's always another spot to bring somebody in to add that perspective and give people a voice and a chance to participate in conversations that they may not be invited to always. And yeah, I mean, I think like all boats rise, right? Like supporting women in underrepresented communities like just helps product development, marketing, like consumers, like it benefits everyone. So
Yeah. Well, and I can say, having worked with you in the past and then just also seeing how you are with like a lot of our mutual friends, it's like one thing that you've done just an awesome job, and you know, your kids are a little older than mine, but Christina, my wife, and I've talked about it, where it's like, you're always inviting people over for dinner. Like, I feel like you're like, just like the place that like all the SNAP refugees, uh, for
Alumni
years, you're like,
headquarters. Let's
yeah,
go. Let's
totally.
go.
It's HQ. But it aligns with a lot of you're saying and like how you think of things. So it's very cool to see it. Uh, but anyway, before we let you go, on that note, um, one other thing just wanted to pick your brain on too is just like we've talked a lot about Meta, we talked a lot about like big tech, but like just kind of maybe even for aspiring marketers out there, like what brands do you follow, tech or not tech, that are like doing innovative things that you're just like, it's cool shit. Like I want to like respect kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think like there's the thing that I love about what we do is like there's no playbook. Like you can't take what you did for Quest 3 and apply it for the next thing. Because there's always like new surfaces and new ways to reach people that didn't exist the year prior. So the thing that comes to mind for me right now is like the Sphere in Las Vegas. And that's not just like a digital billboard, but for us, it is like the most immersive way that we can do a demo at scale. And like that just didn't exist a year ago. And now all of a sudden it does. And so we think about it as a tool to get as many people because demos are the barrier for us. And so getting somebody in a headset is the key to unlock them to buying something. And so that I think is really interesting. And then seeing what other brands are doing on it has been really interesting because it has become like another way to have a Super Bowl moment without it being during the Super Bowl, right? And reach as many people, which you could do on Snap and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook every single day, like 10 times over. But it has become a way to do things in a very innovative way that I think is changing the way that brands need to market to consumers.
Yeah, we're just there for CES, and you can't help
Yeah.
but kind of stare at this thing and like
Yeah.
watch the
It's
ads and
wild.
entertain. Yeah, it is. It is something entirely new. It is really crazy. Before we let you go, like, where can people learn more about you, follow you, or learn more about some of the products and projects you're working on?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram, Shachar TG. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I think it's also Shachar TG. I don't even know my LinkedIn is. But I think, meta.com is another good way to find out what we're up to. Our team leads that site, and anytime we launch a new product, it's going to be there. We've got some exciting things coming up this year too, so stay tuned. And I will be sending you guys Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses and Quest 3s. And the next time we do this, we'll do it in workrooms, because why not?
That's incredible. We'll send you another T-shirt
Yeah.
with our face on
Yes.
it.
Morgan stole my sweatshirt, by the way, so I need another sweatshirt.
Okay.
Easily.
She stole
We'll
it.
get you
She's like,
another
"Oh,
one.
oversized." I'm like, "Yep."
We'll add your name to it now. You're on the
Oh my God.
2024 guest tour. Done.
Amazing.
We will do that. Well, thank you for doing this. And I know you got a ton of stuff going on, but we appreciate it. And it is so cool to see all the stuff you're doing. And yeah, I'm such a believer in Meta. Like, I just think I'm excited to see all the cool stuff you can't tell us about. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.